A good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're well today, and welcome to today's Market Watch session. And it's been another interesting 24 hours on the markets, of course, and we'll do our best to unpick what's going on so that you feel a little armed with some background, at least. Quite often, even if you don't like what's going on, then at least understanding what might be happening can give some feeling of control again, and that's our aim. Of course, we'll have a look at some charts as well. We'll have a chart of the day in both FX and share CFDs, and just a quick reminder that this webinar is based on my independent analysis and experiences and opinions, and shouldn't be taken as representative of Go Markets. And of course, it is for educational purposes only, and you need to make decisions and choices about your own trading and trading actions. So that all being said, let's move on to, let's just double check you can hear and see me okay. Good afternoon, Shane. You can just, hey, Cherry, how are you? G'day, GG, how are you, mate? G'day, Ross. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, all good on the audio and video front. Okay, so let's look at what is coming across the news. It was quite a bizarre session in the US yesterday. We had an initial pop-up in the Dow and the S&P 500, really on the back of a reversal of yesterday's narrative, which those of you who heard me speak yesterday will know that was based on there was concerns about the COVID incident spikes, and possibly yet another wave in Europe, and that upset markets a little bit. So travel stocks got hit hard. Some of the tech sector did very well. The ASX was interesting, but we'll come back to that in a moment. However, we had a late sell-off in the last couple of hours across the board, really, on the Dow and the S&P 500, which meant that the Dow ended up neutral, the S&P 500 down, and Nasdaq underperformed and ended up 2% down, taking another hit and going down. Thanks, Bob. Going down to retest support. Again, we'll have a look at charts in a moment. Surprisingly, US futures are slightly positive, and even more surprisingly, the Asian markets have ignored that US lead in early trading so far. We're seeing most of the major indices up. When last we looked a few minutes ago, just to give you a little bit of meat around those bones, so we've got the Nikkei up about 0.5%, a little less on the Aussie, but on the Aussie Index, but still higher. And we've got the Kospi just in positive territories despite those tech losses, and they may be helped by the US futures a little bit, I guess. The US dollar index hit 5-month highs, going against expert opinion that has been prevalent and talking about the demise of the US dollar. We'll have a look at China and that in the not only the US dollar but also the US dollar pairs in a moment. And of course, precious metals are under pressure because of that, with silver testing key support, although this appear to have just be holding their own in Asia today so far. Now, in terms of economic data coming out today that may influence markets going forward, we do have a relatively quiet day in Asia and in Europe, with the exception of ECB President Christine Lagarde doing a speech later on. That may influence currencies, particularly, of course, the euro. But later on this evening, we get US GDP and the weekly employment numbers. Those will dominate data release. Now, obviously, Treasury yields have been a theme of ours over the last month or so. Though less important than the 10-year, there is a 7-year bond auction this evening. I'm not sure what the influence on markets may be of that, but traders may look at that if they're looking for a reason to sell off, and we see increasing yields there as well. So that's what's going across the news. Let's give a a little more in terms of detail with this, let's just quickly check in on the futures. You should see that on your screen now. You can see the Russell's outperforming. Nasdaq's actually dropped off a little bit, was positive in early trading, but it's dropped back to neutral. And you can see the Dow and the S&P just slightly higher. As a result of that equity pullback, we're seeing some buying come back into the USD. The yen is getting particularly hit hard after a couple of strong days. And the commodity-based currencies, after a bloodbath yesterday and the day before, are really sort of holding their own fairly near neutral. So you've got the yen weakness. That could be where to look for opportunities. We've got continued pullback in oil. It's broken on the Brent contract. It's broken 65 to the downside, so we may well get a pullback as far as 60 on that. And you can see gold is pretty neutral, silver to the downside since Asian Open. Not surprisingly, because of that late sell-off, we're seeing the European futures look a little negative as well. If we look at the economic calendar, there's tonight's action. You can see there's Q4's GDP about to be released. No change expected from last month's figures, so a positive number may. It's going to be interesting to see how the market responds to this. We had some strong PMI data yesterday, which was essentially ignored by the US markets, and perhaps we're seeing bond yields have the potential to start to rise if this comes in very strong, and likewise with the jobs number. So somewhere a Goldilocks number would be around expectations there, one would suggest. There's a couple of Fed guys talking. There's that 7-year note auction we talked about, but really nothing else here to get uptight about. But there's President Lagarde speaking in the afternoon. Okay, so that's everything, the background. So let's have a look at some charts. Start with the US 500 daily. And as I said, good afternoon, Rod. We've just dropped off. There's yesterday's move to take us back down to this sort of 3890. We're just playing with this level at this stage. So looking a little bit weaker as we go through the Asian session. And I'll show you the Nasdaq, which is in a similar place around a key level that we've been trading up and down from over the last couple of weeks. So we've got a range-bound price, but testing the support at 12,750-ish. If we do get a break of that, then there's an obvious next line in the sand, which would make a reasonable profit target, just for those of you who trade short term. If we look at the last hour, if we look at the hourly chart, you can see that last couple of hours sell-off there that we discussed. And despite that stronger Asian Open, we're just getting this pullback again over the last hour. In fact, let's just pop the 15-minute chart on. You can see really it's over the last 15 minutes that we've just sold off a little bit. The US dollar is, as I said, it continues to go from strength to strength. If it closes here, it'll be the highest close since the beginning of November. But there is a big 200 moving average sitting there that may have the market's eye. So we might get a pullback from that with some profit taken on this. But obviously there's much to come across the wires before the day is done. We look at the gold chart. You can see we drew this triangle on. I think when we met on Tuesday. It did break through that. In yesterday's trading, we did get a little recovery, which was interesting because we got money coming into gold and the USD in the same time. As I said, pretty neutral in Asian trading. Silver is interesting. We'll just put it on a 5-minute chart. You can see that $25 level being tested again. We've had that pullback in the last 15-20 minutes or so. Now, just to put this into context, you can see it on the daily chart. at this point here. And if we do get through this, then we could be down to test the 200 MA, which is sitting around $24. So again, interesting. We seem to have had a couple of days where we've got prices retracing to key levels. Look at the Euro USD is another example of that. We had that breakthrough the 200 MA in yesterday's trading. Initially, we started higher in Asia, but we've just dropped off, and now we're trading just below neutral, as you see. One of the major stories was the US yen. You can see that strength coming back into the USD on the daily chart versus the yen. And if we push this on the 30-minute chart, you can see what's happened in Asia. There may be something to do with, there was a missile launched into the sea around Japan earlier today, which has been reported across most of the financial media. This may be some sort of response to that, perhaps, because we're seeing that across everything, but that has a JPY next to it. But you can see that really what we've done here, there's the yen strength. Actually, let's just put this on a 4-hourly chart. So you can see we've had some yen strength here and some yen strength here with it drifting down again over the last couple of days, but we're moving back to retest these highs intraday at around about 109.24. So that would grab our interest on a breakthrough of that particular level. As we said, commodity-based currencies have been hit particularly hard. There's the Aussie dollar. We're holding on up in Asian trading at this stage. So it looks as though we're holding on to support at 75.80, and Kiwi, unless we should really put a New Zealand dollar, US dollar chart on here. Now you can see the bloodbath that was the Kiwi day before yesterday, and then continuation of that yesterday. We've broken through most key levels now. So the question is, can we make our way back up to perhaps around about this 70 cent level? Just take this back even further. You can see how important this level was. There was it was a key level at that stage. So we're really looking, if we look back, there is the level. If we continue to see a sell, there is the level on the longer term chart. I'm just trying to get it right, at about 69.25. So bring that back up so we can see where that is. And you can see that despite this positive move in Asia, then we've got some way we could go into the downside yet before we hit the next level of support. However, again, if we look at a shorter term chart, you can see some very interesting candles going on here. Here's Asian open on the 15-minute chart. We've got that big push up with that yen weakness. Sorry, with that almost a short covering type of rally. And then we've just got a mixed pattern over the last 15 minutes. You can see that rejection candle to the downside. That's quite spectacular. If we look at the yen, let's put it on the daily chart first. There's a New Zealand yen holding on to support at 75.88 on that strength today, almost reversed in the first couple of hours yesterday's downward action on the yen with that yen weakness and bit of money coming back into commodities, commodity-based currencies. If we put this on a 5-minute chart, just take it out a bit, you can see the action in Asia so far. So up around about 30 pips since the open, so quite a significant move. And there's a nice level just to have a little look at. If we look at the 30-minute chart, you can see how important this level is. So 76 cents looks important. If we get a break of that, then we'll get some, that'll precipitate some more buy-in for those who want to go long this, and also may induce some more short-term covering. You can just see the massive short trade that was there a couple of days ago. But this is beginning to look a little bit like a double bottom formation on the 30-minute chart, or whichever chart you tend to look at. And the euro yen, Not a dissimilar picture. If we look at an hourly chart, you can see since Asian Open, looking strong, up again up around 30 pips, trading not far from the high of the session so far, and with a target of 128.82 in the short term. But again, if we get a breakthrough that, we've got a double bottom completed, could precipitate some more buying. Again, you can sort of see that yen strength that we had a couple of days ago, which is under threat now, perhaps. So we are going to make just look at the Aussie Yen on a 5-minute chart. There's the level we're interested in. Put it on an hourly chart. So in the short term, we could see a move up to this 83 cent level. If it breaks 83 cents, this could be good for a substantial move higher. In the first instance, about 50 pips. In the next instance, around about 120 pips. Oh, sorry, around about 80 pips. So this is our chart of the day, but you need to be patient with this. We're about 22 pips off that key level at 83 cents. And if we do break that, then that could be worth a look. So Aussie Yen on the hourly time frame on a break of 83 is our chart of the day. And we've got some nice levels there we can use as stops. One last currency pair to have a look at is the Euro GB Pound. GB Pound's been pretty weak against the Euro over the last few days. You can see that move higher. But the wicks on this are pretty long, so it doesn't suggest a lot of momentum in this, perhaps at this stage. But again, we've got a nice level around about 86.60 that could be of interest. And again, that could be one to watch when Christine Lagarde is doing her thing. Okay. So that's the currencies covered. Of course, we can, if you want me to have a look at any in particular, then by all means type them in. But as you're thinking about that, let's just pop over and see what's happening in the ASX. As I said, those futures, those US futures are looking a little weaker than they were early. So we are seeing that reflected in the Aussie Index. So if we look at this, we can see we are holding on to gains. But bear in mind, this was against a backdrop of a very weak US session. So anything green at the end of the day would be seen as a positive result, perhaps. But if we just look, this is interesting as well. Despite that move only very slightly to the upside, we have got more advances than decliners. That's a positive side, positive sign going forward. And it's a fairly broad-based rally without breaking any records. We can see the banks are doing well. We've got ANZ up. We've got CBA up, so the banks are holding us up, whereas the commodity-based currencies, the commodity-based stocks, such as BHP, let's just have a quick look at FMG and see what they're doing. FMG are pretty neutral. Oz Minerals to the downside as well. So resources are a drag on the markets. Energy's poked up a little bit, surprisingly. And we're seeing some, if we look at the travel stocks, which were hit really hard yesterday, we're seeing some money coming back into these. So one wonders whether it could be worth a look. There's Qantas up slightly. Webjet, which were hammered yesterday, up again almost 1%. And Flight Centre, again, outperforming at 1.26%. If we just look at some of the business-orientated stocks, Zero were down significantly early on, but have managed to hold on to this level. Zip and Afterpay both to the downside fairly significantly. If we just look here, the APT down about 2.5%, but again, way off the lows. Probably $1.50 off the lows from where they were on market open. So very interesting day and really difficult to pick. If we look at healthcare, Fisher Paykel up 1%, Sonic up 3%, having another pop. Healthcare looks to be outperforming. So let's have a look at some share CFDs. Can you see a possible double top in the Russell? Let's have a quick look at that. Let's just bring on the US 2000, which is the CFD that covers the Russell. Let's put it on the daily chart. Russell is actually, so there's potentially a double top type of formation on this, possibly more clearly seen on the weekly chart. There you go. So really, we've got a nice key level in place around about 2145. So the small cap index under pressure. Let's say call it 2150. Absolutely, we get a breakthrough that. I'm not sure how much downside there would be in the first instance. Possibly down to there, about 3.5%, which is not bad, which is significant actually on an index. So good spot on that. So let's have a look at some of the stocks we've mentioned. So we'll pop Qantas on to start with. Put on a daily chart. So you can see this drop that's been happening ever since we touched this high, which we thought might be the top at around about 560. Continued down, but got really smacked quite hard over the last couple of sessions. But you can see how we've held on to this level as being important. This is interesting because that 512 level was resistance here, was support here, resistance here. You can see rather support here after that jump up. So this could be a level that we see a bounce off. And certainly, I know many of you are looking at some of these travel stocks long term. I've just put Flyer Center on because that looked as though it was outperforming, but really we've got a sort of double top again formation on this. So really what it's done is it's rejected that move down. 1850 is the key level, but way too early to consider getting into this, I would suggest, unless you're looking for a long-term position. Retail, JB Hi-Fi was a stock, was a chart that caught our eye this morning. You can see there's some more buying coming into this after a good day yesterday. This has taken us right close up to that closing high of 53.50. So that looks very interesting going forward. If we look at one of the other key retail stocks in Harvey Norman, you can see that we've had a pullback there. So JB Hi-Fi is looking a little more attractive for right now. This is essentially just pulled back to what was a key level at around about 575. So of those two, then JB Hi-Fi looks interesting. West Farmers have also been looking pretty strong over the last few days. We actually, that's just a line from previous. That was the line that we talked about on Tuesday to get excited about. Of course, it broke through that yesterday. I know a couple of you were looking at this pretty closely. Interesting candle today. It's way off its lows despite the market dropping back a little bit. So the closing candle here will be all important as we move into the last hour. Not a massive amount of upside, but you don't expect that from West Farmers. It's not a big mover, but we've got a nice potential profit target to the upside. We've got a key level of support to the downside, which we could use as a stop potentially if we're going that way. Zero, worth a look. So here's Zero. So obviously this has been a stock of interest for us. We got really interested at this level here. We got a candle which was looking very positive yesterday, but fell back down. And there's today's candle. But if we look at this, we are off the lows of the session. but look as though it could be drifted back down again. If we just look at the 15-minute chart, we had a pop higher early. Oh, sorry, a pop higher early in trading, and then you can see we just drifted down. But we seem to have found a sweet spot level at around about 122.50. So it'd be interesting to see where this closes as well. If we see a further move up to retest these, it doesn't have to move higher by much to essentially be a, if we look at the close yesterday, it was at 123.68. So it's just over $1 from where we are now. So if we end up anywhere near the top third of this candle, it suggests that this one could still be in play and could be worth a look. GNC for sure. Let's have a look at GNC for Ross. Grain Corp. Okay, so GNC on the daily chart. Let's catch up. Okay, so on the daily chart, this looks very strong. Let's just get rid of some of these lines because it's getting a bit out of control now. So disadvantage putting one chart over another. We'll leave that line there. And we're going to drag this line down to where was resistance before at 464. So that's a real strong pickup in today's trading. So it's whoa, a 13% move from oh, that's on the weekly chart, sorry. It's not 13% move, it's 13% move from last week. If we look at yesterday's, it's about 3.5% move from last week. See where this candle ends up. If we look at the weekly chart, you can see there really is nothing to hang our hat on here. We had, that looks like an earnings or maybe a, sorry, I'm guessing that's the Chinese agricultural restrictions, the time when that was in play, March last year, or maybe even that's COVID time as well. I'm not sure what drove that down to that extent, but you can see how significant it was and why this looks sort of interesting. Plenty of upside on this. So even if we just recovered sort of halfway up until this next key level, which technically is at 740, then that would be a significant move. Doesn't have a history of moving quickly, but we could have some interesting stuff going on there. I'm just going to quickly check back at the futures and see what, see how the wheat's a bit sort of off today, but that seems to have been ignored completely. I'm not sure what else Grain Corp does, but look, a good chart, whichever way you slice it. But see what that last hour candle looks like, potentially. Okay. Woolworths were another one. We certainly can have a look at Woolworths. Let's pop back on the daily chart. Again, this looked really positive yesterday. You can see that big candle there. Took us up to, we had a high close here at this point in the back end of Feb, early March, and a failure to hold that level. You can see there. It took us right back the way back down to 200 MA. So this looks important at around about 40.50. We get a move over this. We could see it push back up here about 3%. If we get some continued momentum in this. Now, Macquarie have been our favorite bank for a while, and this is looking strong. Okay, in today's trading, Macquarie is, just put it on a line chart, you can see very clearly where that line in the sand was at around about 151.25. We talked about this on Tuesday. Even if you took that pivot high, which was one session at 151, around 151.75 or 151.80, You can see we've broken through that. We're trading towards the top of the candle. So looking very interesting on this. ATR on this is about 288. So if you were to use half an ATR above that, that would be 153, around 153.20, which would take us over this pivot high on this candle here. So this is our chart of the day for share CFDs, is Macquarie Group in the Aussie market. Quick look at the US for those of you who are trading the US as well. Let's just have a look at some of the, we're seeing a fairly sort of typical pattern here. Anything outside of tech, it seems to be trading within a range. So if you look at JP Morgan there, one of our favorites, Caterpillar, is now sort of has held on to this level here, but now looks as though it might be range bound in between these two levels here at 220 and 233 respectively. Some of the stocks that did very well the previous day, such as Zoom and Nvidia, have got thumped overnight. Quick look at Starbucks. That appears to be range bound trading now between 105 and 109. So we're seeing this time and time again in the US. There's not much there that's grabbing my attention in terms of a potential entry. Verizon is one that I did have a look at earlier, simply because it's trading around this $57 level. Looks as though it could be interesting. There's the 200 MA though, so that could be the level at which to enter. So 50 cents above this would be, let's just change the color of this so you guys can see. I'm just going to change it from red because red's a rotten color to see the numbers. So you can see that's bang smack on $57, one of those nice round numbers. If we half an ATR is only 50 cents above that, so would be around about this level here. And interestingly, you'll see that corresponds to where the 200 MA is at the moment. So this is our US chart of the day. For a break of 57, we're going to take it just slightly above that. Would like a close above that level. So around about 57.79 is where we'd like to see Verizon before we're getting into this long. We're not interested in anything short at the moment, just because we think the balance between tailwinds and headwinds is pretty is pretty balanced, unless we get unless we get a spike in bond yields again. If we get that, then all bets are off and the market's going to sell off. Okay, that's really the reality. So just to review, our US chart of the day is Verizon. We've got the New Zealand yen as our chart of the day for FX. On the hourly chart, you can see this is pushing up here, and you can see, and Wesfarmers on the on the ASX. We've got a couple of extra ones there as well as we've gone through this. Anything else you'd like me to have a look at, guys? Good man, Chris. Yep, Aussie Yen looks particularly good today. We're just checking in on that. Just you can see it's continuing to move higher on that towards the high of the Asian session. So it looks as though we've got some more buying going into this and heading towards that that next key level at 83, which could be one to just keep a close eye on. I'm just looking through and seeing if I've AUB. Not sure what AUB is, Bobby. I'll just check in on that. Is that stock? Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's just put this on a 6-month chart. Oh. Okay. So Bobby's in AUB group. Real interesting place on this. We've had a really nice move up this month. It really sort of in the last week or so, but we're heading back up towards this resistance at around about $19. That's an interesting one. Obviously, if it comes up to something like this, which was there really for the best part of 2 weeks, then if we're in any position that is coming up to a key level like that, then we've got a couple of interesting choices. Do we trail our stock quite tightly underneath that, or do we take it off the table as a profit target and then re-enter as a new trade if it should break $19? So it's a good example, and thanks Bobby for putting it in front of us today. A good example of the debates you have to balance as a trader. If you deem this is a high risk market, then perhaps taking profit is a good idea. If you think there's plenty of upside to go, then often that's that's one place where you might be happy to trail a tight stop. So great chart to have a look at for that as an example. Excellent. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. Roll. Sorry, missed another one from you, Bobby. Tasker. One I'm not familiar with at all. Let's look at a long-term chart just to get a feel for. Whoa. Seriously? Does that look right? So I'm really not sure what to do with that. That doesn't look right at all. Is this just? My guess is this is just an IPO, is it? It's just been done. If it is, then there was our high. We've obviously got some profit taking, some knee-jerk profit taking. Don't know enough about this company, and technically there's not enough real information there, but it looks as though the market's just taking profit on this. Hasn't really found a bottom yet, although I guess no, that's sorry, I can't offer anything else on that, Bobby. Sorry, mate. Yeah, that's why we got this chart. I would think what, but yeah, that's so this is not an abnormal reaction to an IPO. So it lists, so it must have started trading. No, yeah, it started trading a few days ago. Had that initial pop. Looks as though now there's some profit taken into it. So we're yet to find somewhere which feels like a support. So really, it's one of those things at the mercy of the market gods at this stage as to where that goes next. It sure does, Rod. It sure does look like your equity curve. Yeah. Since Tuesday, yeah. The fact, I think, thanks, Shane, it was oversubscribed. That would help this demand after it opened, but may well be, yeah. I'm just speculating here, but if something's oversubscribed, then you tend to get that early pop, as people wish they had got into it. So, but that's a fairly major drop in a day. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. I'll have to do a little more digging into that. It looks as though there's been quite a lot of action on there as an IPO. That looks like an interesting one to do a bit of learning from. So Yeah, that's all good. Let's hang on. Let's bring on Crown and see what Crown's doing. There we go. So let's pop it on a daily chart. So we talked about this on Tuesday because, of course, this is the subject of a takeover bid. We normally get this sort of reaction, but since then it's really done nothing. It's traded inside the candle body of that. So really, unless that deal falls through, unless we get some news on regulatory on the regulation side of things, then really would expect it to stay within this. I'm not sure that even if we get the regulatory issues sorted, that will create a pop. I think the expectation is that they will. If they don't, you'll see it drop right the way back down here, because that, of course, is a condition of the offer that was made. Okay, any last ones you want me to quickly look at? Oh, Sonic, we didn't look at Sonic. Sonic had a massive pop up. This is one of those where you say, I wish. So there was Tuesday's, not a particularly compelling candle on Tuesday, but you can see that continuation. Another very, very strong day today. So this has taken us up really to so if you can hear a mad dog in the background, he's going a bit mental. So apologies for that. So we're back up to $36. Now, in terms of upside on this, of course, we've got another key level around about 2.5% up, but that looks very, very strong. Let's just have a quick look at ResMed. Who aren't doing quite as well. Let's also, we talked about Fish and Paykel. Oh, we had to actually have a look at that chart already, didn't we? I can't remember, we looked at Flight Center, but nothing going on here for right now. We're just waiting to see if there'll be a bounce. Did we look at Fish and Paykel? Yeah, yes, we did. That looks very familiar. Okay, so Fisher Paykel, the other healthcare, that actually looks quite positive without running away with itself. We've actually broken the 50 MA in yesterday's trading. Follow through yesterday, there's the 200 MA. That's the place to keep an eye on. So that's at 29.50. All good. Well, I hope that's given you some ideas to have a look at. Just be aware that this is a very, very strange market. GB pound, we actually didn't look at the GB pound yen. So we'll quickly do that as well. Yen weakness across the board today. Let's look at a daily chart to start with, as we always do. We had a breakthrough, a level that looked important at 149.60. Look as though we're pulling that back in today's trading, but we did break the, what's that? That's 26. We're not interested in that. It does look as though it's going to push back to that 149.58. If you look at an hourly chart, not far to go on that, and not a dissimilar pattern to that which we've seen elsewhere. Yeah. So if we break that, we've got a double bottom there quite clearly. We've got 45 pips to the upside to the first pause, and then maybe 92 pips up on the second. But again, like most currency pairs, we've seen a fairly major drop-off in yen. A fairly major drop-off in currencies versus the yen over the last 2 or 3 days. So it would take a full reversal and a breakthrough here to suggest that this is has any significant legs. Up until this stage, it's probably short covering, but we may get some more buy-in, as with the New Zealand yen, the Aussie yen, if it breaks that next key level up above. I hope that helps, Chris, and thanks for putting that in front of us. on the 1 minute chart. I'm going to check the 1 minute chart. Yeah, that looks hot again. So it's just starting to push higher again. There's a 5 minute chart. So it does look as though there's some velocity in this for right now. So fairly flat to start Asia, pulled up, retraced, upward go. So it does look very much on the cards as though we're going to test that. We're going to test that resistance at 149.50. So about 25 pips away. So that's interesting. And also, of course, same with the other currencies. But that is a very interesting chart, Chris. Thanks for that. Chris, you're welcome. PMA. One last one, Pro Medicus. Okay, so Pro Medicus, let's put this on the daily chart. Don't like this chart at all, just to be blunt. Okay, we're trading in a very tight range. Well, actually, very tight range for this stock, should I say? It is a stock which tends to move around about. You can see the ATR is, and this is at low volatility. You can see the ATR is around about one. Let's just check what it is on the 14. So around about 160. But that essentially covers from top to bottom. Okay, so really does look stuck. Although when you get a stock that moves essentially an average of 2.8% per day, then that's got to catch your eye. We have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attempts to break $44 on this over the last couple of weeks. So there does appear to be some no reason to sell this off, but neither is there a reason to buy this. Of course, if it does break, then we've got a really nice, just put that on there. There's a triple top formation there, you can see, which would take us up to $47. So because of the nature of this stock, that in percentage terms is a very healthy 6.1%. Interesting chart. Okay, guys. Well, look, I think that's it. Thank you very much for all your participation today and the charts that you've put in front of us to have a look at. We will reconvene on Tuesday. Now, just one last reminder: if you haven't sorted out the changes in or put your application in for consideration for the Go Market Professional, you need to do that today. Those applications need to be in before 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if your application has a chance of being processed before the 29th of March. Now, of course, after that date, there's nothing stopping you putting in an application. It's not something that is that there's a cutoff date for it actually being able to happen. But of course, that's the date when the leverage changes occur. So please take action, immediate action on that if you haven't already. Okay, guys. Well, look, I'll love and leave you. We'll catch you again next week. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fantastic weekend and trade safe as always, guys. We'll catch you again very soon. Bye-bye for now. You're welcome, Ewan. Cheers. GG. Thanks, mate. See you, Chris. Thanks, Shane.